On the 1-year anniversary of a mass murder, the killer clown responsible returns to kill more people. A friend of mine a few years back told me I needed to watch the first Terrifier movie because of a particularly gnarly kill that happens in it. I asked him when in the movie it happens so I could be looking for it, and he says, "Don't worry, you'll know it when you see it." And oh boy was he right. I knew it when I saw it and I've never forgotten it. Now, I'm not really sure who the audience for this movie is. Half the people are going to pass on it when they learn it is one of the goriest, bloodiest theatrical released movies ever made. The other half of people are going to bow out when they realize it's close to 2.5 hours long. It could be the longest slasher movie in history. And even more people are going to bow out when they realize it's about a clown, because people don't like clowns in horror movies. That's a shame though, because Terrifier 2 features an up-and-coming, all-time great slasher villain in Art the Clown, and quite possibly the best horror movie practical effects I've ever seen. So even though I enjoyed the first movie, I wasn't really dying for a sequel. I was dying to see it even less when I realized how long it was, and I actually thought the runtime was a joke when they first announced the film. But curiosity killed the cat, and I had to see what all the fuss was about, especially since this one actually got a theatrical release. And many news reports are saying that people are throwing up and passing out in the theater while watching it. Now, I'm smart enough to know that this is most likely just a marketing stunt. Every few years a movie comes out with that same tagline. People are so scared they're throwing up in the theater. It's just a way of saying how disturbing the movie is. But that marketing stunt almost always works on me, I have to know. Writer, director, and special effects master Damien Leone takes the hulking silent killer of John Carpenter's Michael Myers and mixes him with the humor and distinct visual style of Wes Craven's Freddy Krueger. Think of the most memorable slasher kills of all time. I'm talking Freddy Krueger's marionette puppet, or Jason Voorhees slamming a kid in a sleeping bag into a tree. Those are about as disturbing as a Pixar film compared to what Art the Clown gets away with in Terrifier and in Terrifier 2. Terrifier 2 hits the ground running and picks up right where the first film ends, even though there's no reason to watch the first film to know what's going on in the sequel. The pre-title sequence is pretty brutal, and if you can make it through that unscathed, you can handle the rest of the movie. But be warned, it does get much more gruesome. I love the fact that all of the blood and gore is practical. It feels much more visceral this way, but it also has a hint of being really fake, thankfully. I can't believe how good some of these effects look based on the micro budget that this film had. Now, whether or not people want to admit it, Damien Leone and his team, they're real artists. Sure, they use their artistic ability to create visual horrors, but the fact that they were able to think of these horrors and then bring them to life cheaply and in a convincing way takes true talent. There are some visual effects here that are now permanently charred in the visual cortex of my brain. Terrifier 2 isn't the type of movie that I feel comfortable saying that I enjoyed, based solely on the subject matter, but I did enjoy it. I mean that in the same way that I always enjoy seeing new fatalities in each new Mortal Kombat game. As nasty as things got, I felt like I was seeing true artists at work. David Howard Thornton brings Art the Clown to life, and in my mind, he is Art the Clown, much like Robert Englund is Freddy Krueger. His performance is menacing and strangely comical in a twisted kind of way. Whether he is laughing silently at a newspaper of a family being killed, or serving candy to trick-or-treaters out of an improvised candy bowl, he isn't funny, but he thinks he's funny, and I found myself laughing a lot throughout this movie, awkwardly, and I think maybe it was just to compensate for all the disturbing stuff that I was witnessing. I don't know. Now, while the movie is over 2 hours long, it actually mostly worked for me. The third act got a bit long, but I appreciated that we actually got some characters to root for this time around, even if much of the story seemed forced. I didn't really need or expect an actual story in this type of film, and I may have enjoyed it more if it was an hour and 45 minutes long. The story was decent, but I think they tried to add a little bit too much mythology, and when it ended, I wasn't really sure what happened and what I was supposed to think. But even so, it didn't detract from my entertainment. While I liked most of the characters, I found a lot of the acting to be very amateurish, and I don't find this as a negative at all, because it really worked with the tone of the rest of the movie. Terrifier 2 reminded me stylistically of a Ty West film. It felt modern, but also retro, and I think having that nice 80s sounding synth score really added to my enjoyment. I know we've only seen Art the Clown in a couple of movies, but I'm already ready to declare him one of the most horrifying and entertaining horror clowns in cinema history, and also an all-time great slasher villain. This is not a movie for everyone, and honestly, it isn't a movie for most people. I can't think of another film that has had a theatrical release that has had more over-the-top and disturbing scenes in it. Getting through this may be a chore for most people, and I'm not sure if the gore or the runtime or the clown will scare more people off of it. But if you want an entertaining, over-the-top modern horror film with a classic vibe filled with incredible practical effects and gore, inventive kills, and one of the scariest clowns in horror history, give Terrifier 2 a watch. Love it or hate it, once it ends, I guarantee you're gonna be talking about it. Annoying your friends with a horn, improvised weapons, spending months making a Halloween costume, tiny hats, trying on funny sunglasses, writing your name in blood on a mirror.